you all have to connect with more dealers to help them identify that there's a big problem or there's a potential problem that they have that they don't really know exist?
That's a great question, and I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Even someone that reaches out with a specific problem that maybe we can check the box for with what our products and services do, I think there's always more to it. And so from my perspective, whether it's someone that reaches out to us or it's me chasing that conversation, right, that level of interest is quickly identifying do they speak our language yet or not? And it really is a new language, because we've all been conditioned, again, like sort of like I mentioned, to read these signals that are translated through Google Analytics, or this language that's been written, and it's being rewritten a little bit by us. And I would say most marketers have a little bit of a comfort level with exploring new ways to and new technology. But new measurement is a different. I think it's a different ball game.
Duran Cage.
Here at Duran Cage.
Like if they cast Duran Cage to play Hercules, which he has the physique to do.
Power. I want you to close your eyes. 3, 2, 1. Wait, what? Hello, everyone, Cage community, and those listen all over across the world. Thank you in advance for sharing your time with me today. And I'm excited. I have a very great guest from FullThrottle.ai. And this conversation is actually, Peter and I had a conversation recently. And after having that conversation, I said, would you please be willing to have a recorded conversation with me so I can share it to the people that are tied to me, that I'm partners with, but then also to other people that maybe aren't as aware with Full Throttle and what they're doing, because it's really, really cool and unique space. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Peter. So Peter, I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about Full Throttle. Thank you.
Thanks, Duran. Yeah, and I agree. We met at the ASOTU conference, and the whole theme of that conference is people first. So I appreciate that you asked me about me first, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about my company. But what am I? I'm a dad who sits in a basement in Southeast Michigan, a dad and a husband. And my whole goal is to find curious marketers who are open to having a conversation, to let their guard down a bit and talk about the real customer experience is sort of what I love to talk about. And of course, that relates back to our product and what we do. And Full Throttle is I'd say at our core, we're an audience company, and we have some technology that enables us to create a different view of the customer. And really what I like to say, a true view of the customer. And it's all enabled by technology that we created for auto dealers that takes that one singular shopper, that device, and transforms it into a household, really a multi-device household that we can do two things with: reach and recognize. And that enables us to really get a true view of who's shopping, because I think there's a lot that goes into an automotive purchase, right? We all know it's like the second biggest purchase or expense for most people in their lives. That means it's highly considered over a longer period of time, maybe than we even expect. And we're going to be shopping the way that we want, right? And I think the world of marketing has been so conditioned to create these specific swim lanes, or what I call the yellow brick road of attribution, where one singular thing that happened and one ad to one device is the whole reason why someone came in and bought a car. And to me, that's a fantasy. So being a marketing nerd my whole life, I somehow came across FullThrottle.ai, and I was immediately drawn to the way that we look at the lens that we enable for the modern shopper, which is the ability to take a single device, opt in from a location share, so fully compliant, above the right board, and take that into show you what the true shopping journey is. And that's multiple people on multiple devices, all shopping for the same thing, throwing up those same digital signals that we're all used to seeing and reading. We just have a different way of grabbing all of that information to make it meaningful, hopefully for our partners and clients, really to give a better customer experience in the end. That's our whole goal. It's got to start back with the customer. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
I love that, and you broke that down perfectly, Peter. And thank you for doing that. And I am going to back up just a little bit because I love that you introduced yourself of you being like a human first. You know, your dad, your husband, and what people don't know that I'll open this up is that this show that we're recording was actually supposed to be recorded the day before we're recording this show. And I asked Peter to move it because I wanted to be present at my son's basketball camp. Actually, I had two of my boys out of the three. They were in a specific basketball camp here in Memphis. And I was like, dang it. My wife told me, she was like, hey, there's a big thing at the end of the ceremony. You want to be there? I said, I've got a show. I said, I'm recording a conversation. And I said, well, let me see. And so I sent him a text. I sent him a message. He was like, absolutely. I would have been disappointed if you wouldn't have made it. And so I'm glad that we're in a line on there. And so, but that breakdown was excellent. So the next question I want to lead this to, because I have a little bit of a nerd in me also. And so when I think about marketing and some of the things that you said, a lot of businesses are made to solve problems, you know, like my own business, your business, Full Throttle. Typically there's a problem and then there's a solution to it. But with what you all see in the market, is it sometimes, do dealers reach out to you all or to you, Peter, with, I've got this problem, I'm either spending too much or I don't know how to track my spend? Or is it more that you all have to connect with more dealers to help them identify that there's a big problem or there's a potential problem that they have that they don't really know exist?
You know, that's a great question. And I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Even someone that reaches out with a specific problem that maybe we can check the box for with what our products and services do, I think there's always more to it. And so from my perspective, whether it's someone that reaches out to us or it's me chasing that conversation, right? That level of interest is quickly identifying, do they speak our language yet or not? And it really is a new language because we've all been conditioned, again, like sort of like I mentioned, to read these signals that are translated through Google Analytics or this language that's been written, and it's being rewritten a little bit by us. And I would say most marketers have a little bit of a comfort level with exploring new ways to and new technology. But new measurement is a different. I think it's a different ball game because let's be honest. At the end of the day, as marketers, we have to think about our clients and their customers, right? But we said it to begin with. We're humans. We're trying to feed our own families, and so we have to merge that salesmanship and presenting new avenues of thinking and technology with where they already are, and meet in the middle a lot of times. So for me, it's quickly, however, get that conversation, quickly establishing, are you going to be open to taking a little bit of a different approach to the way you're thinking about things while still pulling on the same details that I feel like I know are important to you. But at the same time, I better have my damn ears open when I have these conversations to help truly understand the problem. Because if it's just me talking, like I feel like I'm talking too much now, then I'm like, I better shut up. I'm missing an opportunity to learn.
Oh, that's good. And so moving to the next question that I have is around just AI in general. And then when we think about it from a marketing space, this AI, especially the last 2 years, as we've seen with ChatGPT and so many others that are it's just sped up, and especially since it's free, like it's so widely accessible.
Right.
So from a marketing standpoint, is this solution with AI, is this something that before this solution existed, was this just taking up a lot of time for somebody? Like if a marketer was doing this before artificial intelligence, machine learning, did they do this manually? Or is this something that really has just it's maybe fast forwarded so much that maybe they didn't even know. Again, this kind of goes back to that problem existed. But where
Yeah,
does the AI really play into this, and how is it either saving time or increasing efficiency?
sure. Great question. I'm always careful. Even I work for an AI company about saying like, oh, well, that's AI or that's machine learning, right? Um, there's a million different ways to skin a cat. But at the end of the day, what we're doing with AI, one of the things we're doing and is watching that shopper and comparing that shopper and their behaviors to one another. And it's the same, again, the same signals that you can see on the device level. Things like how long are they staying on a page? How often are they coming back? What's that recency and those patterns of behavior that we start to be able to identify when we look at a singular device?
Mm-hmm.
They're all important, but when we think about that modern shopper, once again, our identity resolution technology that's powered by AI enables us to gather who's truly shopping. And when you think about a shopper, think about me, for example. Let's say I'm in the market for a car today, and this morning I'm using my phone and I'm shopping, right? And then I decide I'm more serious and I'm sitting at my desk, and now I'm on my laptop and I may have another healthy session. The the customer, or I'm sorry, the dealer deserves to know that that's the same shopper. And instead of trying to think of two separate shoppers or people, right? When I talk to dealers and they say I have this many people that come to my site every day, 20,000 people, I'm like, well, really you don't, because every device or every household has up to 15 devices that are internet connected in there. Sure, some of them are the microwave where you can't go to a dealer's website yet, but let's just say every household has 2 devices. Then that 20,000 people on your website is 10,000 right away.
Oh, wow.
So the fact is, if you think about it that way, let's gather who's truly shopping, and then how to measure it. If you can connect all those same signals, but at the end of the day, all we care about is if 123 Main Street is shopping, I want to know who's really shopping there. What are they shopping for? What is influencing them? What's that mix of influence? Attribution's a great word, and it's awesome when you can, go down the yellow brick road and attribute it to one singular source. But here's a great example of that yellow brick road, right? Here's the QR code that we love.
Yeah.
This is a mailer that we send. We use AI to send these. But if I get this mailer because I went on my phone today, and then the mailer comes 2 days from now, are you telling me that if I just picked up my phone and called and that number isn't a pre-established number that's connected to that campaign, or if I just went into my browser and the way I like to shop is I just type the name into Google and then I click on Google My Business, right? As marketers, we need to make sure that we are where the customers are and not try and push them down a road that they don't want to go through, because the mailer works if I take action, if I remember it. And that's really, there's so many different ways to reach and influence a customer. And of course we want to keep track of things, but we're changing that conversation to say, look, here's the household. Here's what we know that we sent them. And by the way, they're coming in every different way, so we can keep track of that. But at the end of the journey, if they bought or not, that's a big component that feeds our AI to start to really keep score and aggregate that. And then we have conversations that are informed at a different level through a different lens, but never to try and displace what's already built. Let's complement where we were before and take it from there. So I'm never coming in trying to say that's broken, that stinks. I think there's way too much of that in our industry. And I think that doesn't benefit the customer and that doesn't benefit the dealer. I think it's incumbent on us, and that's that a so-do mindset, to come together for the best of the customer. And that's what we do with our technology and how we use AI. And if you want to learn more, you got to call me, because I don't want to sit here and into the weeds.
No, it's good. And so talk to me a little bit about, I feel that especially the partners that I'm working with, half of them have a good idea about this CDP. This has been a big topic. I know Brian Pash has been a big advocate for it, and many others. And so I've got half my dealers, I feel like they feel comfortable about understanding what that is, and the other half are still like, I don't get it. Could you break that down for us about what you see the value of CDP is. Like, kind of break that down, defining it for a dealer who's never heard of that before, because literally there's dealers in 2024 that have never heard what a CDP even is. So if we could
Right.
break that down, and then what the value is to their business, to just start grasping why that would be important for them.
Yeah. And first I'll say we're not a CDP. We've been called the CDP, and I love it if I get more inbound phone calls and then I can have that conversation to kind of change the perspective. But to me, what a CDP is, and it's simple, it's a common goal. Like, let's gather all this information that we have, that's some's over here and some's over there, right? Because we just talked about the shopper. They're everywhere. They never shop in that straight line. But because our industry has evolved, and because innovators have come in to the space and said, I can do this really well. Here's a CRM, start putting data into here, and that's in language number 1. And then here's a DMS, and there's data over here, and that's in language number 2. And here's stuff that's going on the website that's in a completely different language. At the end of the day, it's trying to accomplish the same goal. Let's bring together everything we know about that customer so that we can get a true view of the customer. And then it's about, what do you do with that information, right? And there's a lot of layers to that onion. And I think CDPs are going to continue to grow, but it's not just a switch that you can turn on. Are we similar to that? Absolutely. Can we enable and push first-party household data into a CDP to complement that? Absolutely. So when I have conversations about CDPs with agencies and dealers, the first thing I ask is really, what are we marching towards? What's the end goal when you put that CDP in place, so that I can get a better understanding of their goals, and then think, okay, how can what we offer complement what you're doing? Instead of coming in and saying, you don't need a CDP, it's just another fancy word for CRM and unifying records and all this stuff that we've already been saying. I just want to listen and find a way to use, so if we have 5 prongs, maybe we have more than 5, right? But maybe only 2 of the prongs would apply for that conversation. So again, it comes down to those, use the 2 ears and less of the 1 mouth when we start to have those conversations about CDPs, always with the goal of enhancing, not disrupting. Disruption is a cool tech term, except for when you think about disrupting. You could disrupt an industry, and that's cool, but I don't want to come in and disrupt a ship that's already sailing. I want to blow wind in the same direction, and it's up to them if they want to turn the sails.
Yes. Oh, this is good. And you said something in the last response that was really good. And you talked about, it's like, okay, there's one thing to get the data, or even if we put everything together, but there's layers to what we do next with it, right? It's like, I always say, I have this saying, I say it about AI, and I feel it's the same way with data, is that AI actually sometimes is not a solution. It actually sometimes creates more problems than it creates a solution. So, in my world, when I'm consulting with an online experience team, otherwise known as a BDC, dealers will say, well, we've been thinking about doing AI, and we're going to go ahead and do that because we don't have enough people. And I'll say, well, let's slow down a second. Let's make sure our foundation is correct, because if we install this AI, you're going to create more problems than not. And they're like, how? I said, because that AI is probably going to follow up more consistently than what you're currently doing, or else you would have never called me in the first place. So if it creates more engagement, because that's really what AI's purpose is in the variable side, is to help create and foster engagement. Well, then what are we going to do with the engagement, and how are we going to respond? And are we going to say, did the bot responded, or are we going to say that was our assistant? Like, how does that plan out? Yeah. And I feel like with data, it's very similar. It's like, you can hook up with a data company so we can get a better grasp of our customers, where they're coming from. But then what are you going to do with all that data? Like, what does it take? And so I would love to hear you either share a couple either success stories or thought points around what people have actually done with the data. So now they have it, they get this, they're looking at maybe website or whatever, but what are some common themes that you see that people put into place after seeing their data that either 1, sells them more cars, or 2, maybe saves them time or money or something like that.
Right. Absolutely. So you said foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
what I think of when I think of our technology, and how we want to partner is to be a part of that foundation, right? So if our technology, our script can go on your site and it can change a single device with an opt-in to a multi-device household that we can reach and recognize. Let's think of that foundational nature and the power of that those people, right? That 20,000 uniques, it's not people, but we're going to try and get to who's actually there. And the first thing we're doing is here's your audience, right? So we haven't used the data at all, right? We have pipes built to instantaneously start to go after those households to keep them engaged, right? As they shop the way that they want to. And that modern shopper, what do? They're researching. They're coming back on multiple devices and talking to others, and they're doing it at multiple dealers, right? So if you're a dealer, wouldn't you want to foundationally gather a first party audience, no matter what, that you can use, and then have that ability to say, all right, I want to turn one sale. Let's activate direct mail, but let's use your technology every single day that can tell me this household's way hotter than the other household because I have 3 devices and 5 solid sessions in 2 days, and this guy just bounced. So we're going to use AI and we're going to send a mailer to that one and not the other. But if the other one comes back in 2 days, then we can trigger that as well. Or if we look downstream, right? And the whole notion of data mining and equity and using data, right? We can pull together and anybody can tell you who's serviced and who hasn't, right? And who's defected or who's in a high APR, who's in a lease overage position. But it's about what do you do after that? Do you want to make your customer feel like they're part of a targeted audience? Yes, you can do that. And there's plenty of technologies that enable you to go and build an audience, right? But I think back to that foundational level, how many dealers have those resources available in their unpredictable days, right? So again, from our perspective, we created technology that is meant to be hands off, but it's not this set it and forget it technology. So we take that data mining and equity information and we use it in a way to just say hello. I call it the Zillow approach. Here's what we know about you, Mrs. Smith. There's plenty of ways where she can click down that yellow brick road of attribution, but it's about that hello. And if we get people used to, you said it with engagement, right? If we get people used to engaging with a dealership every single month and not feeling like a target, but at the same time, we're using that information about really what we could sell them, but it's in a way that's that Girl Scout knocking at the door with a smile instead of maybe the pest, bug control salesman that just kind of looks creepy. It makes a difference. And when you get the Zillow email that says my home value changed, you look at it because I have a conversation going with Zillow. I've shared a little bit of information. They've gained my trust. But even with that, if I see a subject line from Zillow that isn't my home value, I'm scrolling right on by because at the end of the day, and it's, I don't like saying it, but does anybody really want to hear from any business in their inbox? Unless there's some sort of exchange of value and a conversation, then the answer is usually no. And so that's our approach is let's be a part of that foundation. Let's use data to create engagement and conversations, and then use our ability to watch in order to grade those conversations and engagement.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is so now and I hope that everyone, if they're slowing down and really hearing what you're saying, because it's like what I'm hearing, if I'm a dealer or a general manager or even a marketer sometimes, if this is new to them, is take the layers off of your data sometimes, because I'm thinking about all the times I've seen unique visits, all that stuff.
Right.
When we see that can give us such a false sense of what's really happening within the walls of our business that it's almost like showroom traffic. When I'm hearing you talk, I always try to take things that I hear that are digital and make them go back to traditional. And it would be like, to me, what I'm hearing you say is like, imagine as a dealership, when I was selling cars 20, 30 years ago in New Mexico, this would be like if when these customers came in, regardless, we would have so much more information, not just about the mom who came in who was looking at getting the Dodge Caravan when I was selling Dodges back then. Now it's like the mom who has the Dodge Caravan, but the partner, the husband or whichever, has this, and then the child, and then they're doing this, and they have, and so now the dealers, we can get deeper. Instead of focusing on just trying to sell a car, you can actually create an environment that's personalized for that whole household.
Right.
And to me, thinking about service and again, the equity mining, data mining, which I'm extremely passionate about, to me, what I'm hearing is a much more efficient way of growing the business through who you're connected with than trying to grow the business and not even knowing who you already have within the realm of who's already tied to your DMS or your CRM, but taking it just a little step further past those lovely website analytics that we love to look at and getting a little bit granular. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a customer-centric approach, right?
Yes.
So the analogy of the dealership showroom is a great one. Think of it this way: if 100 people came into the showroom, are you telling me that any dealer isn't going to make sure that every one of those 100 people gets a smile and a greeting, and that salesperson is trying to ask for some information to continue that conversation? That's what we enable on the website through that identity resolution technology, and then the ability to use those households and immerse them with that dealership message, right? That's just retargeting, but it's enabled while retargeting is being disrupted through all this cookie madness through a different method. And then if you think about that Zillow approach of saying hello to every single customer every single month, like literally after I was explaining it in this conversation, I started to think, maybe our own product should be doing that for our own clients, or I should find a way every single month to just check in and remind my clients, hey, I know exactly what you're buying from me. And, like I get so caught up in the whole notion of like, I got to put together another performance report. Like maybe I need to change and think about the way we approach or enable dealers to approach their current and past customers and just say hello a little bit more and share a little bit of information as opposed to always trying to sell, right?
Oh, that's good. I got hit. What did I read recently? I read something that was it reminded me. I was like, I've got it. Oh, it was actually at a SoduCon when Unreasonable Hospitality.
Right.
When I finished the book when I was flying up there, because I was like, I'm going to make sure this book is complete before I hear Will speak, and I didn't get to because I came back home for my kids. My daughter was doing something, and I really wanted to hear him speak. But that's what I realized is like, it's all about unreasonable hospitality, and the book is great because it's talking about these different things that he does for customers, or that they did for customers. But what I like though is that they said it's not about unreasonable hospitality just for your customers. It's also for your internal operations.
Yes.
So the way that they talk to their guests was now how they started focusing on talking to their employees, and the way that the desks or the tables, were all perfect, right? That he was talking about how everything was laid out. So then when you went to the kitchen, everything was perfect, just like it was on the outside. And it made me think, I'm like, Duran, you're so focused on teaching dealers how to create experiences for people, but what experiences are you really creating for your actual clients? Like, when are you slowing down to just get intentional with your clients and be like, I'm going to give them an experience? So since then, to your point, it's like I've slowed down instead of focusing so much on drive value, show them that Duran's worth, still doing business with, instead of just slowing down and being human and just saying, hey, maybe like I'll show you an example here. It's like these little books. This is for the 4 agreements. I bought a bunch of these and passed these out to people that I feel maybe could use that message or something like that. So that is so good. And so a question that I want to move on to that I think is important, especially along what's happened recently, and this is shooting this for those, I always pause and say, if you're watching this in 2026, this is June 2024, when something had happened where there was some cybersecurity things and incidents. And so what I really want to ask a question about is, now, given what has recently happened, security, compliance, data is only going to be more important. And so can you talk to to us a little bit about customer data security, privacy, and how Full Throttle makes sure that those areas are tackled for a dealership.
Sure. First, I'll say is that I'm not that person, but we have a team, right?
Yeah.
And that is that you talk about the foundation. That is the foundation of our company. We wouldn't exist without being compliant and without having those certain, I think it's SOC 2 data compliance certifications. So that will always be the cornerstone. That's a lot of times when I have to say no to clients or partners, it's because we have to play within those walls. And then when I think about what happened, all I can do is feel for everybody in our industry that's been affected by it, and it's really everybody, right? You're either on their tech to some extent, or all in, or you're affected because they are.
Yeah.
And either way, we're all in this now, and now we've seen how it can completely disrupt things, and a lot of folks having to sort of show their true colors. How can I help? It's sort of been in my head, and part of it is just to back off and let people breathe. Of course, we know from our perspective that there isn't a ton of impact on our product because it's just DMS feeds and us sending leads to certain locations, so a little bit of a lag. But when I think about our clients and our partners, it's been completely disruptive. And so I think just acknowledging that and having that in the back of your head that, look, your entire industry is hurting right now, and some more than others. So just be conscious of it when you have these conversations, over the next couple of weeks, and ask, how are you doing? And really on the exciting side, let's also play up the innovation that's coming out of this, right? Over the last 2 weeks, we know that dealers they're rolling up their sleeves, right? They're writing on paper. They're going back to the basics. And it's sort of like that Will Guidara breakdown, right? His book talks about, and his keynote was about breaking down every step of that process and involving everybody in your organization in that conversation. So what happened in our industry over the last week is that we had to go back to a lot of manual practices and innovate because we had no choice. And so often we just get caught up in the day-to-day. We're driving that train along. So sometimes a little bit of a disruption, not that I'm saying I'm happy that this happened, but it's going to force us to think differently, to come together. And I'm seeing and hearing a lot of cool stories about that. And I know that's going to lead to new solutions and opportunities for people.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You are 100% right, Peter, because I saw some leader say just that. He said, we actually had the best week we've ever had. He's like,
right,
because the distractions that we normally would have were eliminated when we went the paper route. Like, leads are coming in, like customer requests are coming in to people's actual email, and they're calling them again, like, and leaving notes on a sheet of paper and turning it in to their manager. And I'm like, this sounds like when I was selling cars, we didn't have a CRM. It came out.
Right.
The receptionist printed out your whole database of people that you needed to call. And then at the end of the day, after you went through the 5 or 7 pages of calling the customers and had the area notes, next time we need to call, all that stuff, I took that and handed it back to the receptionist. She typed in her notes, gave it to the sales manager. He reviewed it. And the next day, you did that all over again. There was no, not even a laptop. It's like what I'm recording on now.
Right.
There's none of that stuff. So you're so right. I mean, sometimes going back to those basics and getting those fundamentals is what's needed for dealers. And I think for all of us right now, because I think even for the company that was affected, one of the stores I was connected to said they sent in 6 people to their store to kind of get in there and teamwork. And
right.
I was like, wow, like this industry has really come a long, long way, because I feel before some dealers might have made some decisions just right out the bat to do something, but the fact that everybody came together, I think it was great. And so kind of wrapping things up, I always want to think of it as if I'm a general manager, if I'm a marketer in a store, or anybody listening to this, it's like, okay, I want to take the first step to becoming more efficient with my data, understanding customers and marketing. What would you say would be the first step that they should need to take? Do they need to slow down and just first, look at what they currently have in terms of how they're even getting the data? Because some people might be just trying to get through some of their information through G4 or something like that. But walk through the steps of, if somebody's a beginner, where to start, and then if somebody's a little bit more advanced, where's an area that they could step into that's going to give their dealerships an edge?
Sure. And, I always just think about it like, no matter what you have set up, no matter how many nets, call it, on your website and in all your tech stack, what do you really know about who's actually shopping? And I think that's really the key question. That what is Google Analytics telling you? It's telling you about things that are happening that are shopping, but who is actually shopping it is what I would wonder if I'm a business owner. I know that they came from here, but like, what do we really know? And then if we think about that way, and when we're talking about simplifying things and going back to the basics, like this exercise that we saw in our industry over the last few weeks, let's think about it back to the relation of a CDP. If you have all this data, how are you taking it down? Is it consistent, right? If you're not consistently gathering this data that's coming in from all these different sources, how good is it really going to be when it's pulled into one singular profile? So I think that's the first thing is, what are you doing for every single customer, every single opportunity, and how can that be put in a language that's easy to read? And part of what we do could help with that. And, far be it from me from saying, call me, I could help, but really call me, I could listen, is what I would say to any GM.
I love that response, Peter. That's beautiful. So I thank you for this, because we actually crossed on a lot of different things I didn't think we would even get into. So that's normally how conversations go. But as a quick recap for some of the listeners, if you are thinking about, okay, we're learning about data, we're learning about customers, but the big part that I just heard at the very end that Peter said is, there are a lot of sources that tell us the numbers. Like, they tell us so much about visitors, time on site. That's always a big one, because a lot of companies use time on site. But okay, what does that mean?
Right.
And how can we take that step further in terms of who is spending their time on site and where is that coming from? And I enjoy things like this, because I feel as we move in the second half of 2024 and then we go into the future, these elements that we're talking about are going to be, I don't even think it would be an option to not know this stuff in the near future, just because the space, let's face it, I always tell dealers you really don't have any competition. Your competition is yourself, but really and truly your competitors, the true competitors, they're probably doing something like this to get a better grasp of their actual customers and who they have. So this is something I feel that every dealership that you want to master. Who am I doing business with, and how can I learn more about my customers? And my challenge that I would leave with everyone is, take it one step further and be intentional with the time that you have internally in discussing this stuff. Because sometimes what we'll see is you'll get all this information, but it goes to one person who, like, at the store, who's on their island. So that one person at the island, if it's you, you're probably nodding your head like, yeah, that's me. What I would encourage the dealers to not have that island, but create a discussion once a month or twice a month. Whether you move forward with a full throttle or if it's just you guys starting with your data, have meetings, have times, even if it's 10 minutes, meet and look at this stuff and talk about what it means to our business and what we can learn, because these areas can help with our inventory, they can help with our marketing, we can help with our retention, our experience. So much comes from what we do with the data and how we meet around that. So Peter, I thank you. I appreciate it. I've learned, again, so much, and I believe the community has learned as well. And what's the best way, I'm going to include it, but what's the best way for people to get connected with you? Is it through social, email, number?
Yeah, LinkedIn or email. LinkedIn, and then my email's peter.kelso@FullThrottle.ai.
Cool. And I'll have that. It'll be in the description. Everything will pop up on the video. So thank you so much for sharing your time, Peter. And thank you all those listeners that share their time as well. And let's keep evolving and keep learning. Thank you.
All right. People first.